Oh yes, thank you so much for speaking with us. It's a pleasure to speak to you. We're here at the Geneva Wealth Tech Forum. What do you make of events like this that started? Do you think they're important?
Well, it's not my natural habitat, but what I can say is that it's clearly another indication to me that the mainstream of life is beginning to think about quantum technologies. And in that context, I think it is important because these things do affect all of our lives. But as an event, I'm afraid I'm a fish out of water at these kind of things.
Yeah, so they're looking at the big financial industries here, and fintech is obviously a big topic of discussion. In terms of quantum computing and your area of expertise, how do you think financial industries will really utilize this technology moving forward?
So the banking industry in its entirety, from A to Z, sort of from the point at which somebody makes a deposit to the point at which people are trading securities and futures and options. If you look at that industry, it's actually a relatively large user of what you would call plain vanilla technologies. Things that have been created by technologists over the course of the last 25, 30 years are being used by financial organizations, but they're very conservative. And I think that the biggest impact in the finance sector across the range is likely to be in three areas as far as quantum's concerned. Security. People are obviously paranoid that their money either doesn't get stolen or their identities don't get stolen. And actually, quantum technologies provide a solution for that. We're riven with problems. I mean, we read about when people lose their money. We don't read about, for every one we don't read about the 100 or the 1,000 times when our information is hacked. So I think security is a good thing, and it will allow bankers to protect their clients and themselves better. Then the second area, of course, is broadly described as portfolio optimization. Existing technology that's used by banks is wholly incapable of that, and it can be mechanized. Right? There are very clear ways in which it can be mechanized, so that I see as positive. And then thirdly, which I think is a little bit further down the road, we have this terminology that we say artificial intelligence. And what we really mean is machine intelligence. Intelligence is intelligence, so your and mine and the machines, it's all intelligence. The question is whether we're sentient or not. But before we get too drawn into that, I think that there are ways in which large pools of complex data are carrying messages and patterns, and we'll get better at extracting those for our benefit using quantum technologies. I think that's a little bit further down the road. So these are broadly the three areas.
One thing I really wanted to get your opinion on in general is that everyone seems to be talking blockchain, crypto at the moment. How do you think quantum technologies will help in this area?
Well, let's focus on blockchain rather than crypto. Crypto is just a use of a distributed ledger. So distributed ledgers were really a result of people trying to solve two problems. And we can refine it down. I'm a big believer in demystifying, take the bullshit out of this, right? So one issue is security, and the other issue is decentralization. And they're actually quite linked. So I want to control my information, not you. I want to be secure in the fact that if I tell you that my name is Ilyas, I am in fact Ilyas, and you are the person I want to talk to. Now, if you abstract that out to a general situation, the key critical dependencies and the reason why blockchain, years after it was first discovered, hasn't revolutionized the world, despite how loudly people shout about it, is that large organizations and governments want to use it, but there are some very significant structural issues. So one of them is a handshake. So the point at which my distributed ledger talks to the outside world, there are some vulnerabilities. And I think a quantum technology that can address those vulnerabilities, crudely, let's say wallets for cryptocurrencies, which is where most of the problems happen, not at the crypto itself. The other issue, which I think is really important, is that the premise, you did mention crypto, of a cryptocurrency is the computational expense to generate the token. And that then has a value. And it's a bit like me, if I went out and I said to you, can you buy that dirt over there? You'd say, why? I can get dirt over there. But if I said, I'll give you some gold, you'll take it. Or historically, humankind has. Because that's a value. You have to mine it, it's rare. So computational expense is the building block of these cryptocurrencies, and then the safeguarding of them is the distributed ledger. And a quantum computer, of course, will allow us to do more things quicker and cheaper. So the premise has to be rethought. There are aspects of cryptocurrency where people clearly do get very religious about it, but if you just take a step back and think about it logically, one of the two premises of cryptocurrencies perhaps might be undermined by quantum computing, one of them might be enhanced, which is the security aspect, and then most important of all, the concept of distributed ledgers, nothing to do with cryptocurrencies, I think perhaps will find its place in our infrastructure enabled, but that I think is a little bit further down the road. It's not next year, it's not this year, but it's a little bit further down the road. That's quite an involved answer, but I hope it...
A very good answer. Moving a little bit away from the financial stuff and focusing more on quantum computing as its own kind of entity, what are some of the challenges you're facing at the moment in terms of bringing quantum computing to a larger audience and adoption?
Oh no, the machines aren't there yet for wide-scale adoption. I'm not even sure whether, how many, when we talk about supercomputers and these petaflop type memory type things, they're not widely used, right? I mean, they are implemented, but you and I don't use them. I mean, we might do through a cloud or something. So a quantum computer is a bit like that. It's not something you're going to carry around in your pocket. But wide-scale usage, regardless of whether it's through a supercomputing cluster or whether it's a remote location somewhere, I think that in some areas it's happening now. So the ability to create tokens and certificates for encryption using a quantum technology, that's happening now, and that's becoming, I think, commercialized. I think things like quantum chemistry and areas like that in the next 1 to 4 years will become more commonplace. And then who knows when the first big machines are going to be available. If you asked 100 people who actually know what they're talking about, you will not get an informed consensus. In public, when you're on screen, people will get very cautious because they don't want to be wrong. And so they'll say, it might be 10 years away. My instinct is that the kind of resource that's going into this and the engineering that is now available to us means that we're perhaps not 10 years away for some more broad usages, but we're not 2 years away either. It's in that area.
Ilyas, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.